So we definitely have a few creepy things to get into in today's video, but first, what in the world crashed through this home?
To a story you'll see only here on NBC4. It's a mystery in Whittier, and it is causing confusion and disbelief. The images you see right here show large pieces of frozen debris that smashed through an apartment roof, leaving behind significant damage. But here's the deal. No one knows what they are or where they came from. So let's turn to our Macy Jenkins, who joins us live tonight from Whittier and is trying to find some answers for us. Macy.
Hi, Robert. Well, we have made a lot of calls. The man who lives in the apartment says it sounded like an explosion, but there were no electrical or gas issues, just a jagged chunk of ice that had fallen into his living room.
I mean, it feels pretty heavy.
Yeah, if you put it, this was all one piece.
Tanya Magana in disbelief over what looks like a giant piece of dirty ice that came crashing through the roof of her ADU.
And he's like, Tanya, there was an explosion.
She got a frantic call from her tenant, Udier Grow, around 11:18 Friday morning and rushed over.
So it went through here and it shattered, but there was a big piece right on the couch, another one here, and then one on the table.
Grow started sweeping up the debris. That's when he noticed a foul smell.
Coffee, trash.
That we just said, let's put it in a bag and stuff it in the freezer and see what it is.
She posted a picture on her local Facebook group.
Some people were like, oh, Artemis 2 is going to land today. I'm like, I don't know if has anything to do with it.
But a more likely scenario, it came from an airplane.
If you look outside every 5 minutes or so, we get a plane or two either going to Long Beach or landing on LAX.
So I checked in with NBC4 meteorologist and private pilot David Bigger to ask for any possible explanation.
Depending on what it is, it could potentially be gray water. Again, that's stuff that's coming out of like the galley sink. So you're dumping something down a galley sink, or maybe the hand wash in the lavatory. The accumulating condensation, you can vent that overboard. But these things are heated to prevent ice from forming.
But he says those heaters could fail. Another possibility?
There can also be something like maybe a leaky valve or a leaky seal somewhere. Sometimes it can end up accumulating and freezing to the aircraft while it's at cruise because it's very cold at cruising altitudes,
leaving chunks of ice to fall from the plane. Based on the time, Tanya narrowed it down to 2 flights overhead by Southwest and Delta. Both airlines told NBC4 there were no reports of irregularities or maintenance issues on those flights.
So we have only seen this just a handful of times, very recently, mind you, where a mysterious large chunk of ice will crash to a person's home. Now, of course, the main suspect is that it's something that fell out of a plane, but as you heard in that video, the airlines, they're not taking responsibility for this. Now, they could be lying in order to save face. But one would think that given all the planes that travel throughout the skies every day throughout history, stories like these would be more commonplace. And again, you're only going to find a handful of these stories 2020 and onward. And if it is something that comes from a plane, generally it originates from the airplane's lavatory systems. The ice would normally have a blue hue, and this doesn't have that. But moving on, here's something very interesting that was found in a newspaper going all the way back to September 13th, 1883. This coming from the Providence Evening Press, and is titled, Must Have Been Goliath. It goes on to say that John H. Hanley, a well-known and reliable citizen of Bernard, Missouri, writes to the St. Joseph Gazette the particulars of the discovery of a giant skeleton 4 miles southwest of that place. Mr. Hannon worked several days in unearthing the skeleton, which proved to be that of a human being whose height was 12 feet. The head through the temple was 12 inches from the lower part of the skull. At the back was 15 inches, and the circumference 40 inches. The ribs were nearly 4 feet long and 1¾ inches wide. That's insane. The thigh bones were 30 inches long and large in proportion. When the earth was removed, the ribs stood up high enough to enable a man to crawl in and explore the interior of the skeleton, turn around and come out with ease. The first joint of the great toe above the nail was 3 inches long and the entire foot 18 inches in length. The skeleton lay on his face 20 feet below the surface of the ground, and the toes were embedded in the earth, indicating that the body either fell or was placed there when the ground was soft. The left arm was passed around backward, the hand resting on the spinal column, while the right arm was stretched out to the front and right. Some of the bones crumbled on exposure to the air, but many good specimens were preserved and now are on exhibition at Bernard. medical men are much interested, the skeleton is generally pronounced a valuable relic of the prehistoric race. A couple hundred years ago, especially in the 1800s, not just newspapers left and right, but also multiple Native American tribes would talk about having the bones of giants and their relics as well, and the Smithsonian, they would come along and collect everything, take everything. They would also take the bones from other smaller museums as well. This, of course, to control information in one centralized place. But in this next creepy video, you're going to hear that this individual, David Contreras in Florida, shot his son, but the whole circumstance surrounding this is very bizarre.
On November 3rd of 2023, police in Kendall, Florida, were called to a home in southwest Miami. And this was after 52-year-old David Contreras had an argument with his 21-year-old son. But before police would arrive, David would have a conversation with his wife through the Ring doorbell. And this disturbing video would help us understand what happened that day between him and his son. Take a look.
Oh, hello, hello. David, talk to me. Is he alive? Is he breathing?
He's not breathing. He's dead.
But why, David? Why?
The fighting on the way home was unbearable, and we got here, and just from one second to the next, he was going to go to the Keys. He was going to go with Jacob. He was going to fight girls. Would it be okay if girls go and sleep over? I said no, and I told him no, and I was going to go over there tonight and make sure. He said, all right. You know,
I'm sorry.
It's not your fault, Odie.
Julie heard you. Julie heard you. Julie heard you. I'm sorry.
It's not your fault, Odie. Please call my brother. I
Where's
just
your
talked
brother?
to him.
Where's your brother?
Please.
Where's your brother? He's gonna go to jail.
David had shot his 21-year-old son, Eric Contreras. And the reason, at least according to him, is that after their argument, he simply just lost it. However, what's even more bizarre is that the couple seems to apologize to each other, which seems to be an odd thing to do considering what just happened.
It's not your fault, Odie.
Julie heard you. Julie heard you. Julie heard you. I'm sorry.
It's not your fault, Odie.
Regardless, police would soon arrive and arrest David, and he would admit to the police everything that just happened.
Oh my God! No one! Just me and him!
No one's in the house.
No!
What are you calling? What are you calling for?
I shot my son.
Come on, let's go.
He's right there. Right, walk right. Oh my.
Where's your son?
Walk right in. Walk right in. 10 feet straight in.
What's your son's name?
Eric.
Eric.
In the end, David would be charged with second-degree murder, which means it wasn't premeditated, and he would plead not guilty. His attorney argues that Eric was abusive. However, forensics show that Eric was likely kneeling or crouched when he was shot. Despite this detail, nothing's been decided yet, and David is currently serving house arrest until the trial.
This is something that happened in Florida a couple years ago, and I always found this video to be eerie just due to the conversation between him and his wife alone. She was acting very nonchalant, and you can tell he was acting as well. But also him covering his one eye constantly. Now there's longer video footage of this, and through the whole video clip, he's just covering his one eye. The way they're talking about this, it's almost like he forgot to pick up groceries on the way home. Now they have nothing to eat. So yes, before the trial, he was allowed to live with his wife. The judge gave him house arrest, but it was proven that Contreras did not shoot his son in self-defense as he claimed. And the only thing that led to this shooting was just an argument between him and his son. So David, after he's finished serving house arrest, then he'll have to serve 12 years in prison. Just a very weird video, from the one-eyed symbolism to, well, you can tell he was acting because, again, the courts proved that he did not shoot in self-defense. But how the wife was acting was very bizarre as well. Even one friend of David Jr. said, "David Sr. and Odalis, the mother, I'm beyond disappointed in your moral character after Eric's life was ended. I truly hope you make an effort to rehabilitate yourself and live a life that Eric would want for you." Just very bizarre. There's longer footage of the doorbell camera interaction, but the whole thing just happens to be copyrighted. But moving on, I have been meaning to talk about this news story right here, this figure that was draped in silk that those behind this said they put up in space, but it wasn't, and I'll go ahead and get into that. This was actually a project, a collaboration between the Dorothy Project, which is a Canadian art and science collective, and Taroni Silk. So this team created this humanoid figure thing out of an ultralight human cast, designed a custom silk covering and mounted it on a carbon fiber rig before launching it by balloon from the Canadian countryside into the stratosphere. Now, you're going to find multiple news articles say they launched it into space, but in actuality, coming from the company, they launched it roughly 33 kilometers above the Earth. Not roughly 30 kilometers, no, it always has to be 33, especially between 2025 and 2026, when we've been seeing the number 33 popping up everywhere in these major headlines of these very suspicious news stories. That's how we know something more is going on here. And also, from what we're told anyway, 33 kilometers above the Earth is not considered the edge of space or anywhere near it. So since we have some very suspicious numerology here, since we already have a big lie and a major red flag about where this thing is going being passed around by news and media, should we also trust them at their word about what this thing actually is, this humanoid figure shot up in the sky draped in silk? There are people leaving comments on these news clips saying how this is AI, it clearly looks like it's AI, to people saying it looks like one of those Dementors from Harry Potter, which is interesting because it also reminds me of those black flying things seen flying in the skies, which people also say look like Dementors. People are calling it downright creepy, so either way, people are uniting and coming together and not buying what we're being told here. But moving on, I do want to go ahead and see what other people are talking about. This next video comes from the Jody69, but the original poster was Avant Grant Man.
Chain, such as Kroger, and having to possibly... Picture this. Imagine being a large grocery chain, such as Kroger, and having to possibly fire the entire promotional department. And why do I say that? Because, you know, they run commercials and ads all across the TV with what's on sale. Well, this week's special of meat might have you rethinking shopping at one of their grocery stores. If you haven't seen this viral video, take a look at this. Check this out.
Kroger put out a TV ad. Watch this.
Watch carefully. Pay attention to the meat.
You can save big in every aisle at Kroger. Right now, USDA choice food and ribeye.
Are those bugs?
What the hell just crawled across that meat?
I can't believe it. If you look.
Watch. Look at that.
Right there. How did they miss that?
How exactly do you miss something that obvious while recording meat? Bugs crawling across the meat. Have one more look at this clip again.
So Kroger put out a TV ad. Watch this.
You can save big in every aisle at Kroger. Right now, USDA choice food and ribeye.
Are those bugs crawling across that meat?
This is ridiculous.
I can't believe it. If you
look
right there.
Ribeye roasts are only...
How did they miss that?
So if you have a Kroger supermarket chain in your local viewing area, keep an eye out for that commercial. Let me know if you see the same thing. But at the same time, what are your thoughts on this? The entire marketing team fired? I say so. Let me know your thoughts on this, and will you go shop and get that meat deal that they just showed on that ad? And as always, I'd love to hear.
It seems like somebody who was inside Kroger who was planning to quit was now trying to expose Kroger, because you have to remember these commercials go through multiple chains of command before they're released to the public. There are those saying that Kroger used AI to create this commercial, but even so, like I said, these commercials get heavily reviewed, and what a crazy thing to just go ahead and send out to the public. It seems intentional. This could even be a ploy from the so-called powers that be to stop people from eating meat.
last photo cases scare me on a whole new level. Like the cases where someone disappeared without a trace, but we have video or photographic evidence showing what their last known moments looked like. And this case is the perfect example of that. Chris Kremers and Lisanne Froon were two young Dutch women who both disappeared in April of 2014 while hiking together in Panama. They had set out on a popular trail through the Panamanian jungle, and a local restaurant owner's dog named Blue accompanied them on part of their hike, as he did often with tourists. But when the dog returned to the trailhead without the girls, speculation that something sinister happened to the pair started to spread. When the girls never showed, extensive searches for them began, but no trace of them was found until 10 weeks later. In June, a backpack belonging to Lisanne was found near a riverbank. Inside the backpack was a camera containing over 100 photos. Image number 508, timestamped at 1 p.m., shows Chris crossing a small stream, and then 90 images taken in pitch black darkness during the early morning hours of April 8th. Unknown to early search crews, the girls had repeatedly tried calling emergency services, with 77 attempts in total, starting at 4:39 p.m. all the way back on April 1st, meaning that if the photos were taken by the girls themselves, we know that they survived in the jungle after some sort of emergency for at least 7 days. One of these images, timestamped on April 8th at 1:49 a.m., shows the back of Chris's head. Some believe that she may have blood near her temple. Others say this isn't actually the back of her head, but an outline of her face. Even more mysterious is missing photo 509. It doesn't appear in the memory card's file structure, raising questions about whether it was deleted intentionally, corrupted, or never existed in the first place. Locals also claimed that the day prior to the backpack being discovered, it most certainly wasn't in the area it would be found. They also found Chris's denim shorts carefully laid out on a boulder, which seemed to be done intentionally. More searches along the river near where the backpack was found unearthed a foot in a boot, a piece of a pelvis, and various other bone fragments. DNA confirmed these as Chris and Lisanne's remains. Forensic scientists found that Chris's bones appeared bleached, and the condition of them didn't match local soil conditions. Panamanian authorities initially classified this case as and then an abduction. But by March of 2015, the case was formally closed, with the explanation that both women died during a hiking accident. But there's still debate online about what actually happened to the girls. Did they get lost and exposure? Did one of them get injured and needed help? Or did something more sinister happen?
That great video came from Oddities on Elm Street, and that story is still very eerie to me. To call out to emergency services 77 times and still not get a response is very weird. It was never determined they lost signal. It sounds like there's a very big cover-up and perhaps very big players involved the deeper you go down these rabbit holes. Those photos are very eerie as well. They don't make any sense whatsoever, yet somebody kept taking them. News and media came out and said that this was the last photo that the other woman herself had taken.
Videos I'm about to show you are pretty wild, and I'm going to mess around with this imagery here, and in the second video it's going to get even weirder, right? So the person says, I was looking at the sky and noticed something very strange. I managed to record what appears to be a gigantic triangular craft. The most impressive part is that it wasn't fully visible. It seemed to be using some kind of optical illusion or something, right? So I'm editing this here for you right now so you can kind of make out the image that we're seeing here. This is from Portugal, and the more we play around with this thing, the more solidified this thing looks. It's massive, it's hovering in the sky, and it is just obscenely large, right? I'm going to change the perspective for you one more time. Can you see it a little bit better, right? Now, this isn't the first time that we've seen stuff like this. Me, personally, when I was living up near Wiltshire, I have seen something similar with my brother. Massive, huge object, triangle in nature, floating in the sky and then dissipate, right? Check this second piece of footage. Now, a few days later, this was seen in Brazil, okay? Same shape, same object, same weird silhouette. In broken English, I'm going to try and explain what he says. While I was watching the lightning slice through the sky, something broke the pattern of the clouds. It wasn't a regular flash amid the flickers of the electric storm. I saw an imposing silhouette, a massive triangular craft hovering or moving slowly with every lightning flash. It didn't seem to have its own blinking lights. Its shape was revealed only when the bolts lit up the sky behind it. The roar of thunder boomed, but the object seemed to maintain an absolute calm amid the chaos of the storm. Now, where else have we heard UFOs hanging around massive storms? volcanoes, geomagnetic storms, or during solar flares and things of that nature. It's quite a regular phenomena that seems to happen, but I don't know. What do you guys think, man? God damn.
That video came from the Interstellar Discussion, and I can't help but to think what we're looking at here are one of those TR3Bs or something along the lines of it that are powered by plasma. And it is said when it comes to plasma, lightning is to play some kind of role. So I wouldn't doubt that one bit. That's what we're looking at here. Some government tech in action.
Why do so many people go missing in the U.S. National Park system? One theory suggests that the government knows that those are danger zones, and it's called containment theory. When you think about it, the whole United States could have been a national park. So why did the United States government pick those specific zones to designate as the national park system? Now, it's no secret that most of those surround mountains. So why are these people going missing at alarming rates? Per capita, more people go missing in the national park system than any other place in the entire world. So what is containment theory? Containment theory is that there are portals and dimensions that we can't quite see or understand. It's one of the theories on why creatures like Bigfoot are so hard to find, is that they might not even live in our plane of existence, but they just come and go through it every so often. You might have saw our video the other night of Dennis Martin, the 6-year-old little boy who was playing hide-and-go-seek with his family, and as soon as he went around this tree, he disappeared forever. And here we are 40 years later, not a single trace of him has ever been found, even though after he went missing, immediately there was more than 1,400 rescuers looking for him. His dad saw him go behind the tree, and he was just gone. So the theory is that when he went behind that tree, he either somehow went into that tree or into one of these portals that just made him vanish. And a lot of people say this is silly and this is, a joke. You can look up right now that NASA 100% confirms that portals exist. They just don't know how they work or where they work. Now, in their theories, they only exist like in outer space. Why would they not exist here? Okay, so we know most national parks are around mountain ranges. Now, mountain ranges are just essentially pushed up rocks from deep within our Earth. And we know, once again, with a scientific fact, that these rocks, these minerals, these quartz, these crystals, they give off electromagnetic fields. So if you're talking about something that's generating electricity, now quartz specifically are really unique, guys. If you did not know it, quartz under pressure emit large enough EMF fields that you can actually just buy a detector from like Ace Hardware, and a quartz will actually register on an EMF field. That's how much energy these things are pushing out when they're put under pressure. Not your ones that are sitting on your counter, but a quartz that's being pushed under pressure. So like a mountain that's squeezing all those minerals together. They're just blasting EMF fields out. Okay, we don't know what that does to us, our surroundings, what kind of phenomenons that could create, and we'd be silly if we acted like we did know. Okay, many people speculate that that's why the Egyptians had their pyramids built out of these different crazy rocks and stuff, is because they knew how to harness these powers of electromagnetic fields. That might have been how they were able to build their pyramids in the first place. So this containment theory suggests that the government knows that, okay, this whole area, these things appear, this whole area, these things appear, so let's make them national parks. That way you can't build on top of them with all these different neighborhoods and Walmarts and structures. So we know people are still going to go there and they're going to disappear. And that's a risk that it's acceptable to us. We just don't want there to be a whole town built there. And that's the reason why containment theory is that they're trying to limit the amount of people that go through there. And they even say that some of these really high potential portal places is why they limit passes like Havasu Falls. And, you have to have there's a limited amount of passes sold to these places that you can go there. It makes total complete sense. And if you look back at Theodore Roosevelt, the guy who essentially made the national park system, he believed in tons of supernatural stuff, tons of supernatural stuff. It's just go look at some of the stuff he believed in. And he's the one that essentially wrote the boundaries for the national parks. Now, if you look at the national park systems, almost every national park has places that are called Devil's Peak, Devil's Bend, Devil's Clutch, all these different names. And people say, well, that's just superstitious or, whatever. No, any place with the name devil in it that's been named that since like the 1800s or prior is because there was mass deaths or mass disappearances. There's no exception. Okay. anything that's got a devil in the name, they wrote that back then because back then people spoke different language and different words, but devil is pretty universal. And they wanted people to see on a map, if something was labeled devil, whatever, it wasn't just a slightly dangerous area. It meant like avoid this area at all costs. Like that is a place we should not go. Some bad stuff has happened there. So they would label on these maps devil because a lot of people didn't read, but a lot of people recognize religious words like Jesus, devil, Satan. They recognize those religious words because they'd grown up seeing them. So that's why so many places are Devil's Peak and all this stuff. Pay attention when things are called devil something and don't be hanging around there by yourself. But back to this portal theory. There's another theory that goes into Dennis Martin with this tree situation. And it's the encased tree theory. And this one gets creepy. This is a rabbit hole for you. The encased tree theory is that the fae, the nature spirits, when they're out there, sometimes they grow fond of people, especially children. And the Irish and Scottish, they'll tell you the fae they're a sucker for kids. They like taking them because they're enthralled with them. A lot of them can't have children of their own, supposedly, and they're jealous of like that joy and the energy and their youthfulness because most fae are ancient. So when he went around that tree, it could have been that there was a fae or some kind of nature spirit that just sucked him into that tree and he was gone. The amount of people that have been found in hollowed out trees is kind of astonishing. It's kind of creepy if you want to go down that hole. Loggers have cut down trees before and human remains are in them and they're like, how did this even get in here? And the theory is that at some point they got into a hole in the tree and then the tree's hole grew up or somebody put them in there or whatever over time, or they got stuck in there. There's a million different theories on why this phenomenon has happened so many times in the past, but what remains is sometimes people are just found encased in trees and we don't know why. Okay. Containment theory. It's a great loophole to go down and a rabbit hole to go down. And what's even creepier is when you get into the places that are like extreme no light zones. And some people say it's sky pollution. People go out here and stargaze. There are some places where rescuers have to get permission to use electronics. That includes flashlights, their vehicles, or anything. In a life and death situation, you're telling me that the rescuers have to wait to get permission? To me, that sounds like there is something out there that gets disturbed by the lights and they do not want that thing being pissed off. Here's the crazy side of containment theory. Containment theory is also a belief that the government made a deal with these essentially like supernatural creatures, like we're going to go ahead and get wild, like vampires. And the government essentially said, hey guys, the U.S. National Park System is your hunting ground. You're allowed to hunt there. You can't hunt outside of it. That's where it gets real wild if you want to go down that one too. Just don't take my word for it.
That great video came from Nomad's Animal Encounters, and I also suspected for quite a bit that when it comes to these national forests and a lot of these missing people cases, the government are heavily involved, not just with experiments and rituals out there in past histories, but they have also been releasing these creatures from these deep underground military bases into these national forests just as an experiment. And they let so many people into these national forests so the numbers of missing people really do not explode, which they do indeed limit group sizes, but it's still a great connection at the end of the day between these national forests and the government. But in any case, thank you so much for watching. If you like this channel and you want to see more, please subscribe. If you're already subscribed, please like, as any engagement does help the channel grow. Once again, thank you so much for your support.